Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's fireside chat. We are so excited to be here with our amazing guest, Vanita Gupta, who's going to talk about multidimensional health. My name is Min Ling, and I am your host for today. And for those of you that are streaming live on YouTube, I just want to quickly share a little bit about the Grateful Giraffes for those of you who haven't come to our events or don't know much about us. But basically, the Grateful Giraffes are a vibrant global community of over 800 members who value gratitude, wellness, and impact and are spiritual yet grounded. And we come together to co-create meaningful experiences, both live in person while building community-owned lifestyle brands dedicated to human flourishing. And that's why we also started these series around the fireside chat so that we can also spread, knowledge and wisdom to our community at large as well. So we're really excited to be here. And of course, if you want to learn more about the Grateful Giraffes, you can go to our website, our website is gratefulgiraffes.com. And today's chat is with Vanita Gupta, and I'm going to bring her on to the spotlight so I can introduce her as well. So, Vanita is a multidimensional intuitive healer, helping people gain mastery of their mind and body so they feel liberated, confident, and empowered to make their dream life a reality. She bridges the gap between science and spirituality, evidence and intuition, physical and non-physical, as well as Eastern, Western, and New Age medicine. Vanita holds a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology, an MBA in pharma marketing, and was a medical director leading scientific communication strategy for a high-profile pharma and biotech before she woke up and left the medical industry complex in 2008 to pursue the true health and wellness. So we're excited to have Vanita here as our special guest for today's fireside chat. And welcome, Vanita.
Hi, so nice to be here.
Yes, we're so excited. And your journey has, taken you down many different paths. And I would love for you to share how you went from pharma to this more holistic wellness journey that you've been on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was kind of born into a family of medicine and science with my parents being doctors and a lot of my family being doctors. It was expected that I would be a doctor. I kind of deviated that route by getting a PhD instead of an MD. But, in my early life, I was exposed to a lot that had me questioning the meaning of life. And so I think that there was a part of me that was always seeking something beyond what I had been presented as reality. And a lot of science is really just strictly looking at the way information is interpreted and processed through scientific method as being our reality. But I was really exposed and really intuitive to this idea that there was a greater reality beyond what had been presented to me growing up. And so, I tried to do it their way. I tried to do it the more traditional way and found that it was not in alignment with me. I actually was very medicated when I was young with this idea that pharma could solve a lot of the problems that I was experiencing, whether it be in any sort of chronic condition from asthma to allergies and eczema and things like that. And intuitively, I was guided to take control of my diet back in the 90s. And this was before people were talking about gut health and talking about things like fasting and intermittent fasting. And I had just received guidance and I started my journey there. And over that time, it just began to unfold. I got led into systems of health like Ayurveda in the late 90s, and really began to treat my body like a temple. And as it turned out, as I progressed deeper and deeper into my physicality, it brought me deeper and deeper into my spirituality. And so there was like an inside out approach in that way, but I've always been spiritual. It just really helped me to deepen that relationship as I got closer to my body. After I had my daughter in 2013, she came in, this little galactic starseed, and woke me up. She told me she came here to wake me up. And she really forced me to step into my role in who I am right now, because I had to parent her in a very different way than what I had been parented in, and also like what is expected in mainstream society. And that really just forced me to confront a lot of the shadow side of myself that I had not been willing to look at. And I just transformed my life from there. So at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I left a very lucrative career while I was at my peak. And I stepped into an unknown, and it's just been unfolding ever since.
I love that you just completely shifted your life out of like a knowing that this is like a different path that you needed to embark on. And I would love for you to explain what multidimensional health is, because that's what we titled today's conversation. And a lot of people are probably like, okay, what does that mean? How does that relate to traditional health, or how do I apply that to my life? And if you can share a little bit about what multidimensional health means, we'll start there.
Absolutely. So I refer to multidimensional health in two ways. I think that it has multiple meanings. So there's a multidimensional aspect that we have when we look at the physical body alone. A lot of medicine and science is really focused on isolating everything from one part to another. So, you go to a specialist for your heart, you go to a specialist for your lung, you go to a specialist for your gut. Really, our body is an interconnected system. When there is a problem that is happening in your gut, it is not solely related to your gut alone. It's going to impact every part of your body. Anybody who knows anything about gut health these days knows that our gut controls a lot of our body systems, our cognitive functions, our behavioral functions. And so it's really affecting us in multidimensional ways within our body, right? Then there's the layers of our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies. We are a four-body system. So there's the multidimensionality that exists within that. And then we can take that a step further, because we are part of this earth. We're born of this earth. Our bodies of our earth are of the earth, but we are greater than that. We are not just human beings on earth. We are multidimensional galactic beings as well. We are all made of stardust. The earth is made of stardust, and there is much more to our greater reality than what we know. So when we start to look at some of these feelings and emotions that we're having, that sometimes people can feel like, I don't feel at home on this planet, or things don't feel right, or being in a human body is uncomfortable. We don't necessarily acknowledge that right away. We don't understand what we're feeling. We just know that things don't feel right. And we begin to awaken to this greater potential that exists, and this idea that we're not just earthly beings. We're actually part of a greater reality that exists out there. And when we start to tap into those things, we can see how this can impact our health. So I look at it from all levels, from our physicality all the way out to our four-body system, all the way out into our greater reality here in this universe.
I love that expanded perspective, because we tend to just think about ourselves in this earthly body. A lot of people don't always think about it from the spiritual realm, and how everything else affects our system. I would love for you to talk a little bit about the relationship between the physical body and the spiritual body, and like how that opens up our channel when we are in a certain physical state as well.
Absolutely. Just to touch on something you said, this idea, that we're impacted by everything around us. A very simple example, a very practical example is the fact that, the moon affects us and how we function, right? We're mostly composed of water. We know the moon moves the water. Females especially know that they're impacted by the moon cycle. So these are just small ways that we can see how the greater universe is affecting us. And it goes much broader than that, but that's the most practical example. But in terms of our physicality and how that can relate to our spirituality and how this impacts us is very simple, that when we are stuck in our third dimensional density, so this is a term that's usually referred to when we think of our physical being, right? This density that exists. This is one aspect of things. This is just one aspect of life. And this is where we're dealing with our physicality. But the truth of the matter is, we're not physical beings and we're not stationary, stagnant beings. Like we look at a rock, we think of this as being a solid object that has no movement in it, when truly what it is this vibrational energy that is really constantly moving and constantly interacting. And it appears solid to us because that interaction and that movement is a lot slower. But as we get into, you know, quote unquote, higher vibrational beings like humans or animals or plants, this movement is a little bit faster, right? There's a little bit more dynamic activity that's happening. We're constantly changing in the cellular level. You know, I used to study something called receptors that exist on the surface of cells. And these are like signaling pathways that come in to tell a cell what it needs to do to move, to die, to live, to, you know, proliferate. And what happens is these, when you look at a picture in a textbook or when you hear a description about it, it looks like these receptors are just stationary. They're just sitting there. But truly what it is this vibratory state. There's a constant movement that's happening. And that's what's happening within our bodies as well. We're constantly in activity on the inside. Well, there's a deeper activity that's going on, and this can really change our vibrational state. We hear about raising your vibration, and you know, it's thought of as a new age term, but this is really a scientific principle. As we raise our vibration, as we begin to vibrate faster, as we begin to vibrate at a higher rate, we lose a lot of the physical density. So what is some of that physical density? Well, you can think of it as lower vibratory emotions like depression or sadness or grief or anxiety. And then there's the higher vibratory emotions like gratitude and peace and harmony and confidence. And so these are states of being that lift you up. You can keep going into higher states of being that take you into these really spiritual experiences. Anybody who's spent some time in meditation and has had that moment of just oneness or maybe a revelation that happens feels that excitement and that higher vibrational state that comes from that. So that's one way where we can look at our physicality in terms of in relation to spirituality. But then, you know, it's also described through something like the chakra systems. This is another way of looking at it, where we have many, many chakras, but the most, and there's lots of different systems when it comes to chakras, depending on what culture you look at. But the most accepted and the most well known is the seven chakra system of the body, which comes from Indian philosophy, which is my background. But, you know, we have from our root, our sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and then our crown. And what these are energy centers that live within our body because we are energetic beings. And so what ends up happening is when that energy flow is not flowing, when it's stuck in some area, this can lead to a physical manifestation of disease in some ways. So if you have a blockage in your heart, you might have something like looking through, you know, the stories and, you know, the progression of it, it might be manifested as something like breast cancer, or maybe there's grief in your lungs, or maybe there's some other problem that goes on. Maybe it's within your torso area. But these things are often being able to be represented by blockages in our chakra. And when we can get to the root cause of what is truly affecting us, then we can understand how to truly prevent and cure disease.
Oh, that's so true. Like, especially what you said at the very end. I've experienced that in my own life with family members, who had certain diseases, and it was because of, grief, like create manifesting into like lung cancer. And I remember the doctor saying that there's a lot of Asian women that have, lung cancer and they don't even smoke. And it's like this dis-ease that is being created. And I would love for you to go and expand into like how do you start to uncover, the root cause of the issues when that's really what we want to look at. I know, like in Western philosophy or Western medicine, we tend to look more at the symptoms and how do we get to the root cause and start to find that for ourselves.
It is one of the most important questions that can be asked because this is the true nature of health. This is what it means to be healthy, is to really look at what is causing us to be imbalanced. We have to remember that our bodies are the most perfect machine. We are living, breathing, amazing technology here on Earth. This body operates without us having to think about it. You do not need to tell yourself to breathe. Like we tell ourselves to breathe so we breathe deeper and so that we can get into our bodies, but you're breathing without your thinking about it. You don't tell your body to digest. You don't tell your red blood cells to go to the alveoli and capture oxygen. All of this is happening in the background. From the moment of conception and onwards, our bodies have this intelligence within it, and it knows how to operate here on Earth. All it needs is the right inputs internally and externally. Now, what ends up happening in the Western system, and honestly, this happens from even before medicine, right? What happens in our lifetime is that this perfect harmony leads to some sort of imbalance through inputs that can be disturbing. It can be something as, eating bad food, or it can be trauma. It can be emotional issues. It can be, the air that we're breathing. All of these things are creating reactions in our body, and our body has to respond to it. So what does our body do? It just tries to rebalance itself. It rebalances itself in the way that's needed. So that might be getting rid of toxins. Maybe you're coughing up phlegm because the air quality is poor, and you're trying to purify your lungs and you're getting rid of what the toxins are there. We purify ourselves through mucus and ridding ourselves of toxins in that way. You had an emotional trauma, and the way that your body deals with it is by, compartmentalizing that and holding it away from you because it's too much for you to deal with. Our bodies know what they're doing, and it's up to us to help our bodies to be able to restore balance by, getting rid of these things that are causing the imbalance. Now, unfortunately, in Western science, the idea is to look for the thing that's causing the symptom and try to target that symptom and reduce symptoms. But that's not really truly affecting what the cause of disease is. Now, it's really interesting that you mentioned Asian women with lung cancer, because that was, I was really heavily involved in oncology. And that was one of the targets for drug companies, to look at the gene that's causing these women to be more likely to have lung cancer. And it's a specific variety of lung cancer, and it's really targeted to non-smoking Asian women. Now, even in that population of women, which is a small population of those who are dealing with lung cancer, it only works in 40 to 60% of those people, if it's even that much. So even if you're looking at the gene that they're saying is responsible for it, that's not what is responsible for this. So what's really truly happening? Well, what's happening is that we are often trying to stop symptoms without dealing with the root cause. And this starts with our basic physicality. So if we're not taking proper care of ourselves, giving our body the proper inputs that it needs, what is that? Sunlight, clean water, clean food, sleep. It's all the things that we know we need to do. But in our modern lifestyle, often don't have time for or give excuses for, and we just don't do it. We need to go outside and ground. We need to have certain nutrients, and like chlorophyll, and eating a live food, and reducing stress in our life. All of these things are very essential for us to maintain our health. And if those are not met, If those basic requirements of living here on earth are not met, we will never truly understand what the root cause is, because you can keep looking for what that problem is. Is it emotional and mental? Is it something that is truly going on with us physically? Is it something else that we can't understand because maybe there is something in our ancestral lineage and that we're trying to clear karma and there is something much greater at play? But if we don't take care of our physicality in the most basic ways, we can never truly uncover what that is. And so that's why when you look at a lot of alternative models, and I call them alternative, but really they're not alternative. Really, Western medicine is the alternative model. Western medicine is something that is relatively new. And what we're talking about is going back to what it means to live on earth and really truly understand our relationship with the earth and really treating our bodies the way that they are meant to be treated. When we go to those ways, you'll see that a lot of the time that most of the protocols are cleaning up your diet, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, making sure you exercise, a lot of those basic components, because if you're not supporting your body, nothing else you can do is ever going to cure you. And I can tell you for myself, I've dealt with chronic issues. I've dealt with a lot of things in my own life. And it was having a foundation that was built on really taking care of my self physicality that allowed me to jump timelines, literally jump timelines. Like, this is not a matter of, oh, it progressed over time and I got better over time. It's like one day I was in this timeline and another day I was in a completely different reality where that part of me no longer existed. And it's a really beautiful thing, because this is truly how we can learn to operate in these multiple dimensions of reality and take care of our physicality and truly prevent and cure disease.
Wow, there was a lot of wisdom in what you shared there. And it just goes back to, the basic, like you said, the basic needs of really taking care of ourselves and honoring our bodies and like listening to what it needs and making sure that we nourish our bodies and so that we can do the deeper work and discover the other blocks and traumas that we are holding in our field. But I would love to go into the part about how do you intuitively know what is needed for your body as well too, because I think there's a connection with ourselves that goes a lot deeper, but a lot of us are disconnected to what our body really needs. And how do you restore that connection so that you can figure out how to navigate and help your body and nourish your body?
Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. So I think this really comes down to the key word that you said, that we are disconnected from our bodies. We've been programmed to be disconnected. That's just the reality of the way we are being brought up these days. We're programmed to be disconnected by being told how we should feel, by being told what we should do, by being told, how we should act, which sometimes goes against our nature. So, for example, I began homeschooling my daughter, and it was something that I said I would never do. I used to, rely on external authority in order to, educate my daughter, because I believed that that was the way it should be done. And that was the way I had been raised. And I have numerous degrees to my name, and this is just what you do. But she was not doing well in school. She needs to move. She needs to fidget. She has her own ways of coping with stress in her life. And school provides a lot of stress for kids. And what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to sit down for 8 hours a day and not move, or, however many hours, but it really ends up between like school and homework and all these things, and really just focus. But what are kids meant to do? They're meant to run and play. And so they're being programmed to not trust their own instincts. So we're told this in a lot of different ways, how we are expected to look. Well, what if your body type is not going to fit that? And then we start desiring something that's just not in alignment with our reality of how our body is supposed to feel and look. We focus so much on these external things like how we look as opposed to how we feel, because this is what we've been told. And as a result, we're disconnected from ourselves. And I can go on and on and on in the ways we're disconnected. We're so out of touch with the food that we eat. Most people don't know where the food they eat is coming from. They don't know what's happening and how their body relates to it. And they eat from pleasure because our food has been modified to increase the pleasure molecules, while really bypassing a lot of the systems that are telling us, when we're nourished, when we're full. And there's a lot of molecular mechanisms that have been hijacked in order for us to keep buying food and keep eating and not being nourished. So there's a lot of ways in which we're disconnected from ourselves. And so when we're disconnected from ourselves, we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust our internal judgment. We don't trust our intuition. We don't know when what we are feeling is actually the truth or if it is something else. And we then put our mindset in there saying, this is what I should do. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is the way I should behave. This is what has always been done, as opposed to listening to that little voice. Our intuition is not this, all loud pervading voice of God beaming down on us and giving us this miracle revelation. The internal voice is our own voice. It sounds like ourselves, and it's really quiet and it's really faint, and it gets louder and louder the more you listen to it and the more you trust it. But really, it starts by just learning to hear that voice and trust it a little bit. It can be something as simple as walking down the street on a path that you normally go on en route to normally what you do. And let's say you normally take a right at the light, but there's some whatever reason you just get that little nudge in your said take a left. And you're like, why would I take a left? Right is what gets me to work, and I need to be there in 10 minutes and I'm going to be late, and why would I ever turn left? Too often we have these kind of dialogues with ourselves. Well, what happens if you turn left? Maybe you turn left, and then suddenly you see somebody on the street that you've been meaning to talk to for, you've been getting a little bit of intuition, like, oh, you should call that person, and you've put it off for a little bit, and they're right there. And you're like, hey, I've been meaning to call you. Can we set up a time to chat? And so then you set up that time to chat, and they give you funding for the project you need. Who knows? We don't really know how these plans are being laid out for us because we think we're in control, when really what we're doing is we're looking at a very myopic view of our life, of reality in front of us. And there's a much grander picture at play and all these moving pieces. And we think we're in control of it. We think that we're making it happen. But truly what it is beginning to look at it as oh, right, I am operating in a way that, yes, I have some control. I'm choosing what I eat and I'm choosing what I do, and I choose how I take care of myself. I choose how I feel good. But then there's an interaction with this reality, with this world that's guiding us to what's best for us in that time. And truly trusting that does take a little bit of faith. It does take a little bit of surrender, and it does take a little bit of action, really acting on those little bits of intuition, maybe those little bits of impulses, knowing that they're not going to necessarily hurt us. These are not this is not listening to a voice that's telling you to jump off a cliff. This is listening to a voice that's telling you to drink a little bit more water, that's asking you to turn left instead of turn right, to see what unfolds for you. And the more that we really start to connect with ourselves and really start to listen to that voice, you'll start to hear that intuition speak to you in ways that are very, very meaningful for you, telling you what is best for you and how to take care of your body. For the longest time, I thought I knew what I liked. My favorite food on this planet was pizza. I am a New York snob when it comes to pizza. And, I had to have the perfect slice of pizza. I had a wood-burning pizza oven in my backyard. I made my own pizza. I was such a snob about it. And when my body told me that I needed to give up dairy, it was I'm not giving up pizza. There's no way I'm giving up pizza. How can I do that? But it told me I needed to give up dairy. And by giving up dairy, I listened to that voice. I cleared my asthma. I cleared my allergies. I cleared all the final remnants of the things that I was dealing with. And now if I look at a slice of pizza, I have no attachment towards it, no desire. My mouth doesn't water. It blows my mind. It's someplace that I never thought I would be, but it's because I trusted myself. And now I've adjusted and my ego is no longer in control. My body is telling me what feels good. And it's amazing to feel good, even when times are hard. It feels good to be in my body, to know what I need, and to be able to take care of myself.
I love that story. I love French fries, so I can relate. I was like, I don't know if I can give up French fries. Luckily they haven't told me. My body has not told me not to eat French fries anymore. Otherwise, I'll be like,
I love French fries too, and that was an interesting one as well. I get it.
I'd have a mini crisis there. Um, but I would love to go into a little bit more details about how do you distinguish intuition from the mind? Because I get that question a lot, being in this field as well. Is like, how do I know it's my intuition? How do I know it's not my mind just overriding it? How do you start to get that distinction? You know, that nudge. What is that mind? My mind just telling me to do it, or is that true intuition? And then I want to talk about like creating harmony in the body, but this is something I think would really benefit a lot of people, distinguishing how to tell the difference between mind and intuition.
Yeah, I think it's an important question. There's multiple different ways to look at it. I want to start with unification, actually. So let's not separate our mind from intuition. You know, our mind is part of us and our intuition is part of us. And what our mind does is just use a little bit more of its analytical power to question things. So if our intuition is our mind, it's really coming from the same place. Where the questions come in is where the mind takes over. Who was that? Is that the right advice? Should I really be doing that? Is that the right decision for me? Why would I do that? That doesn't make sense. All of that is when the mind takes over. So what happens is that intuition, as I mentioned before, is just a really simple, silent voice. There's no shoulds. There's no judgment. There's no you have to's. There's no that if you don't do this, all is going to fail and your life's going to go to hell. There's none of that. There's none even like I promise you glory. And you know, if you do this in the correct way, then everything is going to work out. It's often a very simple directive. Have a glass of water, turn left, call this person. And it's a very simple statement because it is your choice. You have free will to take action on that or not. There's no judgment. Now, what ends up happening is our mind comes in and says, I don't have time to call that person right now. I don't want to call that person. I don't like this person. Last time I had a conversation with this person, it wasn't good. All of that starts to come in, which then clouds the little small directive that we've been given. We often then lead to this idea of this often leads to the idea of confusion, right? Because it's like, well, why am I not calling this person? Why can't I call this person? Or, we just go into these stories. We're creating so many stories that we then don't understand like what the original direction was. We don't understand why we were given that. And we put so much in there that when we take that direction, we begin to look for a result, or we're looking with an expectation as opposed to just experiencing and seeing where that pathway leads. So often I say that, when we're trying to distinguish between what is intuition and what is our mind is bringing in question and judgment and criticism and shoulds and should nots and a lot of those kind of thoughts versus intuition is just a simple guidance. Why don't you go to bed now? It's not that hard. And the more that we start to listen to that intuition and take action on it, the louder it becomes. And I say, just play a game with yourself. Like you can hone your intuition, I like to do this sometimes. Like I will, walk, I'll take a walk and then, I'll ask myself, should I go left? Should I go right? And it's whatever that first thing that I hear is, go left. So then I'll go left and I just see where it takes me without expectation. And it's just the fun of it all. Maybe I find a feather on the ground. Feathers are like one of the things that I like to see, like my spirit guides lead me and my higher self leads me. And, so maybe I find a feather on the ground and I'm like, that is a beautiful thing. Maybe nothing happens, but I've had a pleasant walk. It doesn't really matter. It's just learning to play the game a little bit, learning to get outside of our thinking, analytical, logical mind, and learning to just be with flow a little bit more. And that's really how we cultivate and hone our intuition.
Love that. I do those practices too. With parking spots. I'm like, should I go left? Should I go right? Which way do I
Exactly.
turn? So it's a lot of fun. Oh, AJ says feathers are her spirit guides as well.
Oh, yeah. Nice. I
Ruby
love that.
Ruby also asks, and I think this is a good follow-up question about intuition. Is intuition always positive?
Is intuition always positive? So again, the judgment and this idea of good versus bad is coming from our ego mind. I think that, so you can have, let's say, a negative experience, right? Like um, here, I'll give you an example. I remember, I was in the middle of a meeting and I was in a like entrepreneur type business with a friend of mine. And I was in the middle of a meeting and my higher self steps in and like decides that I'm going to back out of this project. And I was like, okay, what just happened there? Like my intuition was like, and I went with it. I didn't question it. I went with it. I backed out of the project. I get home and I'm like, what did I just do? What was going on? And it was a guided thing. And, I've surrendered to a lot of that. And, but then I'm questioning like, what have I done? And now I don't have an income. And like, that was just so spontaneous. But it led to a series of events unfolding that would have never happened if I hadn't taken that first step. And that doesn't happen right away. And what could be seen as negative was the greatest positive thing that has happened for me. So when we are putting that judgment of what's positive and negative, this is all relative based on the moment that we're in. And if we're only looking at it from that vantage point, we're going to start judging like this is good or bad, right or wrong, positive, negative, when truly we are a life that is unfolding and there's more to the story than just that singular thing. So that quote unquote negative event that happened because you followed your intuition could lead to a greater story down the line. And it's usually because we are needing to learn something. We're needing to clear some karma. We're needing to create space in our lives, in our mental field, emotional field, spiritual field, physical field. We are doing this work all the time to allow newness into our life. And if we don't create space, then we'll never be able to have that. So sometimes our intuition is guiding us to have certain things collapse so that something else can be built.
That is so true. We just have to trust and like surrender into, what we're being guided by versus judging it. I also want to have a follow-up question about intuition because I feel like a lot of people get their feelings mixed up in that. Is a feeling like or emotion that's like, oh, I feel like this isn't right for me, but like it could also be their trauma pattern that is playing itself out. So, how do you distinguish between emotion and intuition? And then we'll get into some other questions, but I thought I think that's something that could be helpful for others as well.
Yeah. So often with emotion, we're reacting as opposed to acting. Typically, when we're coming into behavioral patterns and, emotional traumas and, any sort of um, anything from the past, it's because we are reacting to a situation. And that can be presented in multiple different forms. So maybe, you experienced emotional neglect as a child. And so you have a pattern of overgiving because you're looking to receive love. And then now you're in a situation where you're at work and it's not like a love relationship. It's just a simply co-working work relationship. But then you're overgiving because of that trauma pattern from your past, right? Like we find ourselves constantly recreating something from our past and then until we clear it. And then like suddenly you get emotional to something because like you're asked to do something and now you feel like you've just hit your boundary limit and you're starting to react. So we often are reacting when there's an emotion involved. And so it's the difference between knowing what's right for you, which can still be what your emotions are guiding you to do, but it's truly how you respond. Who you are and who you are, in that moment is based on your responsive capacity, your ability to respond to the world and act in a way that's in accordance with, who you choose to be. So if you are, let's say, like, you're in a relationship that doesn't feel good and it's been serving you up until this moment, but then suddenly it doesn't feel good anymore, and you want to state something, and you know that you want to engage with your partner in a certain way to have these discussions. What is the state in which you are communicating to them from? Is it an emotional reaction, or are you able to communicate from that place where you're cultivating that peace and harmony from within, and that you are okay in your personal self-love, that you're able to come at this conversation with love for yourself and love for another, as opposed to you did this and this is why and I don't want, and a lot of these blame victim mentalities. So often our emotions can guide us to what we truly need and what was truly in alignment for us. But how we choose to act on that emotion is up to us. And this is how we can then use emotion as a guiding point, but not necessarily the place that we should be responding from.
That makes so much sense because I see a lot of people swept up in their emotions and they just carries them versus using it as a guide and allow them to have a clearer picture of like, okay, what is actually true for me and how do I express that? So
Yeah,
that's
I go through this all the time. I mean, I'm constantly having to check my emotions. The number of times I want to just text back and like say what I feel, and my fiery spirit comes through. Yeah, I have to check myself. It's work. I have to stop myself, take a breath, like, okay, I'm not going to respond right now, and really check in with yourself.
yeah, that's such a good point. Pause. Make sure that you're not just responding and reacting. It's from an
We're trying
alignment.
to control, because that's often what, we're trying to do is control the situation.
Yeah, that is so true. I'm going to ask a few questions from the audience real quick. So V asks, what do you think about raw milk on asthma and allergies? I cut out milk years ago as a teenager to help with asthma. I do think it did, but now I'm back to drinking milk close to raw milk and seeking only raw milk. Wondering your experiences with raw milk, asthma, and allergies.
Yeah, so I personally don't have experience with raw milk. I am an advocate for raw milk for people who drink milk, because that is, the pure source of milk. And I've explored dietary aspects on all over the place, and there's lots of different philosophies on this. Um, I do feel like that if you are drinking milk, raw milk is the best thing for you. It is so nourishing for your body. It has so much of what we need. There is a life force giving, loving energy that's coming through it, especially if you're making sure to get your raw milk from a place that in which the cows are truly loved and treated with respect. Now, when it comes to asthma and allergies and all of these things, this is going to be a very individual perspective. There's no one way of going about this. Now, there's a lot of the world that does not have the genetic capacity to produce lactose after a certain time period in their life. And so they're not going to be able to process the sugars in milk. And so they're going to experience bloating and indigestion. And a lot of these things that sometimes we don't necessarily feel until there's long-term repercussions. And then we start to see it as manifest in things like asthma and allergies and other issues as well. So really, it's going to come down to how does it feel for you when you're drinking milk? There's always the question that you need to ask yourself, because this is not a matter of like what is right and what is wrong. It's what is right for your body. So as you're drinking it, pay attention to how you feel. Like as you're drinking it, after you're drinking it, a day after drinking it, and just see how your body is responding. This is how you treat yourself as an experiment. You are your own experiment. There's nobody who knows your body better than you. So feel what's right for you and just adopt those habits that feel good.
I love that answer. And because I've always heard about raw milk as well too. So I love that question, V. And in my experience as well, because I just drank raw kefir for the first time, raw milk kefir, and then all of a sudden I had like all these spot, like it just my skin there was like red dots and like it started like to break. It was like the weirdest thing, and that was the only thing that I changed. So I love what you said about like look at your body, see how it reacts, make sure that it's right for you. So hopefully that doesn't happen, in your case, but I couldn't process it in the way that I thought I could, and you might also want to look at food sensitivity tests. That's what I was told to take a look
Yeah,
at as
it could
well.
be a food sensitivity, but when it comes to milk and things like this, there's, history that we have that, animal husbandry was really with a small population that has to do with, Caucasians mostly. And so they're more likely to be able to process milk in a way that other people of different races and ethnicities can't. And so, some people have learned to adapt to it. Some people ignore problems and don't realize. Some cultures really like, they'll ferment it, like as you're saying with kefir or other types of ferments like yogurts, or they boil it. So they're breaking down all of that lactose. But in the end, it's going to come down to your own gut microbiome and your own health and your own, personal place in that moment of time. And it's always important to remember, like, what's true for your body now may not be true for it a year from now, 5 years from now. So learn to evolve with your body and just listen to its needs.
I love it. We always get to listen to our body because it has so much wisdom. Chris asks, one of my closest friends was diagnosed with stage 4 ALK plus non-small cell lung cancer 6 months ago. Is that the cancer you're referring to? Do you have any simple advice to pass on to help him reconnect to his body and allow this process to be what it is?
So I'm going to say that it's been several years since I've been out of oncology, so I don't want to proclaim that I have any sort of medical advice or any knowledge of any sort of current treatments or anything that is available today. Yes, ALK positive cancer, and there was also EGFR positive, are the different genotypes that were investigated, and lots of drugs were being developed. And they use this as a form to determine what medication a person receives. In my opinion, if they have a genotype for a lung cancer positive in this gene or that gene, really, it doesn't mean that much. All it means is what targeted medicine they can receive, because allopathy is simply looking at a prescriptive model of how they can treat something, as opposed to truly understanding what's going on. With that person and why cancer is being developed, and whatever else is happening. It's not about what genes turned on and not, because that really is not going to affect the bottom line of it. The only thing that I would suggest, for anybody who's dealing with anything, is that if you go into a treatment, if you go into any sort of treatment, I don't care if it's acupuncture or chemotherapy, your mindset is going to be the most important aspect of how that treatment works on you. I'm sure you guys have heard of the placebo effect. There's also a nocebo effect. I'm not going to go into that detail here, but the idea is you're going to control that outcome by your mindset and what you believe. So as long as this person is maintaining a healthy lifestyle in whatever way they can, that is, according to their situation, doing the best that they can and maintaining a positive outlook. And if they are on this, drug for ALK positive, non-small cell lung cancer, then, making sure that they're not going in with this, like, I don't know, is this going to work? The side effects are so horrible. Like, it needs to continually be that positive experience for them. So if they can educate themselves on what those symptoms and what those side effects could be so that they know how to support themselves, build a network of people around them so that they feel supported, so that they don't feel alone, people that can help them shoulder this burden of, disease and treatment of disease. And as I mentioned, like really making sure that they're honoring their body's needs so that their body can do what it needs to be able to recover from this cancer.
Yeah, mindset's not really talked about when it comes to like healing diseases, and it's so true because our mind is so powerful that it literally can change our like physiology in our body as well. So I love that you brought in that perspective. I would love for you to go into a little bit more detail about bringing harmony to the body because, like, I feel like, a lot of the ailments and the diseases are the dis-ease in our body, but how do you start to bring in harmony and like unify your self mentally, spiritually, physically, energetically so that you are in full alignment and harmony with yourself?
You're asking such beautiful questions. I love these questions. Um, it's an ever evolving process. This is something that, we are constantly readjusting to our internal and external environments. And so this is not something where you're like, oh, yay, I'm harmonized and I'm unified and I'm aligned with my higher self and my purpose and everything is done and I'm set for the rest of my life. So this is a constant process in life. But, let's go back to the beginning. A lot of this has to do with our nervous system and nervous system regulation. And so really it starts by taking care of, all of our body systems by really calming ourselves down. We're more reactive than we think we are. We have this like low level of anxiety that's always kind of operating through us. There's a lot of to-dos in life. There's a lot of goals that we have. There's not enough time. There's all of this pressure that we feel. And so it's really important that we serve ourselves and serve our body's needs by really trying to minimize the stressors that we have. One of the most practical examples that I give is really with caffeine. I used to be such a caffeine addict. And, what happens? You start your day and you start with caffeine. A lot of people go for their first cup of coffee or, matcha or something first thing in the morning. And that is the first thing that they're putting into their system. When you're putting caffeine into your system, you're sending your body into fight or flight. You are not sending it into this peaceful state of being. You have just come out of a completely different dimensional reality in your sleep state. And now you're entering into this new reality and you're giving it caffeine and you're going straight into fight or flight. So this is dysregulating the nervous system. It's already putting your body on this high alert. I've got to conquer this day. I've got to do this. This is going on. Oh my gosh, I just spilled coffee and now I'm late for work and I've got all this going on. And it sends our body into this shockwave that really then sets the tone for the day. So instead, I offer people a suggestion to like, we have our individual practices, whatever it is, start your day with gratitude, start your day with a meditation, start your day with affirmations, whatever it might be. have a glass of water. Have a glass of water with a little bit of lemon and ginger. It helps cleanse your system. It helps move whatever has been processed at night. Water is a beautiful purifying element in and of itself. The lemon and the ginger can help it. Even just a glass of water, a little bit of Celtic sea salt, something like that to help with the electrolytes. But you're now just flushing your system. You're giving your body that time to wake up. I suggest eating a piece of fruit, having something with nourishment and life force energy in it, getting your body awakened to the day, allowing it to feel prana and energy, and then going in to caffeine if that is your desire to do so. I, you know, one of the biggest things that I did to harmonize myself was I did give up caffeine, and that was guidance. This was not something that I chose to do. This was not something that I would have, done on my own. And, you can lessen caffeine. You don't have to give it up. A lot of people have rituals. There's a lot of identity around caffeine, but it is being programmed into our reality partially to keep us on this hyper alert state and to keep us disconnected from our body. Caffeine is going to change the way you eat. It's going to change what you eat. It's going to change how you digest. It's going to change everything. And it's really overriding the function of your body. So just become more cognizant of it. And as you do, you're going to start to see that you're able to look at what is really you and what is a chemical inducing something in you to be a certain way. And this is one of the ways that you can look at harmonizing yourself. But again, simple practices, things like breath work, meditation, gratitude, this will bring you into alignment and will help you just be in touch with yourself, and it'll help you calm yourself down, and it'll help you be in a state where you feel more at peace. I mean, what is harmony? Harmony is when we're all functioning together, when all of the organs of your body are functioning together and all the systems of your body are functioning together and you feel at peace in the world. That's truly what harmony is. And this is what we're moving towards. And so we have to learn what it takes for us to cultivate that harmony in us. If you find yourself in a stressful moment, take that step back. Figure out what you need to do to regulate your nervous system, to calm yourself down. Maybe it is expressing your emotion in that time, going into the bathroom and crying your eyes out, and then coming back into whatever state that you need to, where you can feel more at peace with yourself. Feel what you need to feel. But then it's about us taking conscious action to really bring us back into a state that we choose to be in. And so I say, do those things that are going to help you regulate your nervous system, because as soon as you do, you're going to find exactly what you need so that you are at more peace with yourself.
Well, I absolutely love that. I feel like that's like a great way to end today. Like, just a reminder to regulate your nervous system, bring that peace from within. I love how you brought in, like, in the morning, start with gratitude, anything that like just slowly ramps up your body. I feel like in the Western society, we're like, go, 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 go. We just need to like take action and just move right away, but it's all about reconnecting to yourself in the morning so that you have that ability to um, work the rest of the day and be at peace while you're working and not so in that frenetic energy or the fight or flight energy. Thank you again for sharing your incredible wisdom. Everybody thought it was so beautiful. Ruby even said, thank you so much for this call. Super insightful. Rochelle said she loved that, like what you shared about, in retrospect, when you look back at, intuition and it's guiding you in a different path, it might be for your greatest good. So we really appreciate your words of wisdom, and we would love, for people that want to connect with you, if you can just type in the chat, how they can connect with you, and we can share it as well. But we want to thank you for your incredible wisdom um, and yeah, just your beautiful knowledge.
Thank you so much. It was really, truly an honor to be here. The best way to find me is on Instagram, and my title is Food Alchemics, which you can see here in my screenshot name, but it's at foodalchemics.com, ALKHEMIX. And then I also have a YouTube channel, which I sometimes post content to there. And so you can find me there. I'm doing, fun things like writing books. I'm going to be starting a podcast about how to build new earth societies that are decentralized and more using the human body as a template, and, lots of fun things happening. And I work with people one-on-one. And, I just love interacting and connecting with people because this is what we are meant to do, right? We're meant to connect with one another. And this is how we move forward and really take care of our health. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for having
Thank
me
you
here.
so much for being here. Thank you everyone for your attention and questions. And we'll be back for another fireside chat soon. Thank you. Bye, everyone.